Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about the issues that affect the customer experience at your store. Because the better the experience, the more they come back to you for everything they need when they need it. And this week's episode is brought to you by techforce.org. TechForce is a great source to find, to educate, and to become part of a community of technicians. And this week we have Raven Hartkopf. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
All right. And she is with Collin College, and she's going to talk to us about the collision course and what they're doing over at the school. So welcome to the show, Raven.
Hi.
Having some audio issue. Good evening, Larry. Okay, you're muted now. You need to unmute your microphone. There you go.
Okay, you can hear me better now?
Yeah, much better. What happened?
I don't know. As soon as we went live, my earbuds were you were coming in and out. So I'm like, okay, technical difficulties right off the bat.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about Collin's program and what we've been working on.
And your association with TechForce.
Yes. We are one of the schools on TechForce's website. So we've got our own little segment, our little page, and then we've got students that are signed into it. So we're pretty excited about the partnership.
Excellent. All right. So give us a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get into the automotive field, and how did you get to school, and how did you end up doing what you're doing now?
It's a bit of a long-winded story, so I will keep it short. But about 14 years ago, I attended school at Texas State Technical College in Sweetwater, and I took some auto body courses there, transferred over to Eastfield, which is Dallas College now in Mesquite, and got my associate degree with auto body there. And then I actually didn't use my degree for a couple of years. I stayed working in grocery retail because I was actually pretty good at it and the money was good. And then I shifted over to a body shop, and I was there painting and prepping as well for several years. And then I landed at Collin College during the pandemic. So I was unfortunately laid off from the body shop, but found a place there at Collin. So I've been there ever since. And I think this marks my 4th year there at Collin.
Okay. Yeah, auto body is something that I've always enjoyed. I can't say I've been very good at it. But in high school, we had a spray booth in our shop class. So we got to learn how to paint. We got to learn how to do body work and auto mechanics. So I was very fortunate because there are a lot of schools today that have kind of abandoned those programs in high school. So it kind of, it doesn't help the void that we already have. Got a couple of guests on here. Jamie Alexander says, good evening all. And Sean Sweden says, evening all. Welcome. So,
Awesome.
So what inspired you to pursue a career in collision? I mean, that doesn't seem like the mainstream thing for a lot of people.
It's really not. I found myself kind of burnt out doing like the academic stuff in high school, and I was kind of just ready for a change. We had a career day at my high school, and I picked a couple of different things, but one of them was just like doing collision work. And I was really drawn to that as opposed to the other sessions that I sat through. So I think the other ones were like being an architect and being a meteorologist were the other two options. But there's a lot of math involved with those. So I said, you know what, maybe I'll just do something completely different. So it was fun to kind of go against the grain. And it took my parents a little bit to really like be okay with that, just because they saw me going down this really academic route and I kind of just deviated from it. And we actually see that a lot with some of our students. In Collin County, there's a lot of emphasis towards doing like 4-year degree and that kind of stuff, maybe going to Collin with transfer credits and then going somewhere else. And so we still kind of see a little bit of that same kind of mindset. So it's kind of nice to have kind of been there and understood like what some students are going through.
So I've never gone to collision school. Give me kind of a breakdown. Like, where do you begin and stuff like that? Do you teach them? Do you teach them framework? Do you teach them body work, replacing panels?
We teach a little bit of everything. So when we start the first semester, it's very introductory stuff. So we assume that our students don't know anything. And we have some that have never picked up a screwdriver before, and then we have some that are coming from some of the high school programs. But we like to start everybody at square one just to get everybody off to a good start. We do basic stuff like trim and hardware, how to take apart the car without totally breaking everything. And we do some other stuff like basic refinishing, so how to prime a vehicle. And then we also go into things like dent repair. As they progress through the program, we kind of introduce more advanced subjects building off of what we've already taught them. So as they progress through, we go into like a mechanical and electrical class. We also have a couple of more refinishing classes. And then towards the end, we focus more on the structural side. So doing some of those major panel replacements as well as measuring frames.
Now I'm old, so that means I'm old school. So what we did might be a little bit different, and I'm really curious. So you start first with the mechanical stuff, like unbolting and bolting bumpers and fenders and doors and things like that.
Yes, yeah, that's where we start out, just to kind of get their hands on some tools so they're used to it. And we also really emphasize safety in that first semester.
Okay. Like goggles and gloves, stuff like that.
Yes, and there are so many people that hate wearing the safety glasses. I mean, I could probably spend the whole next hour talking about how much we really try to focus on the professionalism side of it, because we do have students that end up, we have students that end up in all kinds of shops, but we really want to make sure that they are as prepared as they can be.
You know, when I worked in a shop, it was not an air-conditioned shop, right? In today's day and age, you know, a lot of shops are air-conditioned, so they have it good. But I remember back in the day working in a shop where it was boiling hot, and you're under a car, and you've got the safety goggles on, and the goggles would fog up because the water was dripping off your head, and you couldn't see anything. So. Yeah. I could definitely see people not wanting to wear them. But then, of course, the downside is the 2 hours you spend in the walk-in clinic because something fell into your eye that you need to have removed. We got a couple more comments. Nathan Williams, hello, ladies and gentlemen. And he says, and a 4-year college degree guarantees what exactly? Good question.
4-year degree?
Yeah.
I guess it really depends on what you're pursuing. So
okay.
There really isn't a guarantee with any degree, honestly. And it really depends on the graduate, what they're pursuing and what the major is going to be. So for us, we can, with our associate degree, transfer that and get a BAAS, which is a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences. Now that's a route that students can take. But with a 4-year degree, I remember seeing some study, I saw it earlier today, I think maybe it was on Facebook, that a 4-year degree can earn you potentially more in the long run, but even then, it really depends on what you're pursuing. And honestly, like for collision and automotive, you know, there's students that'll make more right off the bat coming out of our 2-year program as opposed to a 4-year degree. So it's just two different means to being what you consider successful.
And as with anything, you know, there are people that have degrees that don't apply. You know, in the food industry, for instance, another area that I'm in, I see people go to 4-year colleges, get degrees, and don't necessarily apply it. And then I see other times where a busser will work their way up, or a dishwasher, and you know, a few years later on, they're the executive chef at the restaurant. So as with anything, it depends, Nathan, on how well you apply it. Marshall, yes, I think watching the show via computer is definitely it, because I see all of your comments now. He says, when they get into the field, they will be required, at least in HD. Most of the HD shops require cut-resistant gloves and glasses at all times in the shop. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want
Yeah.
to walk through a little bit more of the training piece of it. So the bolting and unbolting panels and fenders, things like that. Hey, Greg, how are you, man? And then at what point? So now, at what point do they get into cutting off quarter panels and patch panels and things like that, and fenders? And at what point do they learn that?
More towards the second year. So we focus a little bit on some of the welding and the attachment methods in the fall in their second year. And then by that last semester, we are introducing a lot of the major panel replacements. So quarter panels, rear body panels, sometimes front rails, depending on what we have to work on. But although that we teach those things, we don't expect them to just go out in the field and just do that. You know, for us, it's more of introductory of they know kind of what the process is. So ideally, we would like our students to be helpers and have mentors. So if they kind of understand the process, they've got that learning curve shortened because they already kind of know how to, break up things like spot welds. Okay.
Now, so welding is an integral part, right, of the course as well.
Mm-hmm. Correct. We have two welding.
What's that?
Oh, we have two welding classes.
Okay. I remember, fond memories. I used to run repair shops, and it was great. It was an unlimited supply of inventory for used cars because people would come in, they'd get an estimate on their car, and invariably they'd say, "Oh, that car's not worth anything. I'm not putting that into it." Then I'd offer to buy it from them, but it was a little bit less scientific, if you will. We'd be brazing in chicken wire for quarter panel patches and fiberglass and Bondo. Do they use that much these days, or is it straightening of the panels with dollies and hammers?
It depends. It really depends on what the OEM or our manufacturers recommend. But they do limit the amount of body filler on a lot of panels. So we are seeing more of a replacement type versus repairing.
So it's in automotive, it's gone that way. Where we used to rebuild starters and alternators, things like that. But now it's component replacement, and it sounds like in body, it's gone exactly that way also. Wow.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is. Now, I'm sure there are repairs that you can do with body filler, and that's totally fine. We just want to always make sure that it goes back to pre-accident condition, but also that the crashability of it isn't affected when we make these repairs. We want to make sure that if they were to get in a wreck, that the car performs the way it needs to. We don't want to compromise any safety.
I've seen some work where you're walking along the body panel and you're knocking on the side, and all of a sudden you hear thud, 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 where it's Bondo. It's about this thick. Probably not the best thing to do,
Yeah, we've seen, and I've seen some things like that where you're like, who did this? And it'll be like an inch thick of body filler, And there's definitely some great like sculptors out there that are really making it look good. But yeah, once you get into it, you realize that there's a lot more there than you realize.
Yeah, a few years later, you end up with some cracks in the panel.
Yeah, we've seen that.
So the quality of body work then has got to be exponentially better than it was in the past, because I remember going through cans and cans of Bondo back in the day. So that's probably very, very light now, just like skim coat stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try to limit the amount of body filler being used just because that's the expectation of what a lot of shops are, requiring. Now, I mean, there are shops that still probably do a lot of what they call mud work, which is fine. We try to focus more on what OEM procedures are, what they recommend. We try to follow that guideline better, as opposed to just like, okay, here's how you fill in dents. We want to say, okay, let's, rough shape this out, get it where it needs to be, and then barely put any body filler if we can help it.
So now you're replacing exact body panels, you're welding them in, and just a little bit of filler stuff. Got a couple of comments here. Greg, let's see here. Jamie Alexander, absolutely. Everyone defines success differently. We can be better at messaging technical schools to not only students, but also explaining the potential of income to the parents. Is the shortage in body shops more so than regular repair shops? Do you know that number?
I don't know the number for sure. I know that Tech Force publishes their like their needs analysis because I
Yeah.
remember seeing the most recent one. I think it was 2023, and I think there is still a need for it. I do think there may be a different type of need for collision work simply because there's fewer people doing that. So, for example, when we look at our enrollment for both programs, automotive and collision, we're in the same building, but there's probably, I don't know, close to 200 or 300 students on that side, and then we see about 60 students on the collision side. So there's fewer students kind of pursuing that route as opposed to the mechanic route. But I'm sure there is a need on both sides of it.
So I would imagine then, if I'm going to school for body work, I probably have a few jobs waiting for me by the time I get out, just given the need today and the number of people coming out of tech school that know that skill.
Yes, there is, and we're seeing more of the MSOs, so like the multi-shop organizations, focusing on doing mentor-mentee type of partnerships or apprenticeships. So that's pretty exciting. Several of them are starting to implement their own training because they've realized that now it's important to really grow their own as opposed to pulling experienced technicians from other shops. So I think that's kind of the solution that a lot of people are looking at for like the bigger organizations. For the smaller ones, we actually see more students go to independent shops versus the bigger, MSOs, but they tend to be a little more flexible on what to do, and they usually just partner our students with somebody there. So that's been pretty cool.
Now, do the OEMs have much involvements with the schools?
They do. So on the automotive side, we've got several partnerships there. It's we've got Toyota, Honda, and Rivian are our main ones, and we do have some other manufacturers that have some connections with us. And then on the collision side, we started doing the Toyota collision curriculum in the summer. So everything that you would maybe go to Toyota for training for, we were offering that as well. So our other instructor, there's two of us that are full-time. Our other instructor, Marcus Godinez, actually went through all the Toyota training, and then he was teaching that over this summer. So that's our first real alignment with the collision side for an OEM.
So the OEM has their own specific curriculum and program, and then you guys teach that as well.
Correct. Yeah, it was as an addition or a supplement to our normal, offering. So it was an enhanced skills certificate. So, and we would accept students from all over the Metroplex. So they didn't have to necessarily be our students. They just had to have X amount of hours in collision before we actually put them into that program.
Now, do the OEMs send students to you to do their training as well? Or is this kind of to add to their roster of talent, so to speak?
It's more of an add to. So we have I always say down the street, but it's down the highway. We've got Toyota's like main headquarters, and they do training there. So if someone were already employed with Toyota, they're usually going to go there. And for us, it's more of a recruitment effort of getting students into this program and then potentially being hired on at a Toyota certified collision center.
Ah, that's pretty cool. Now, where are you located? What part of the country?
So we are in the Metroplex DFW, but we are north of Dallas, Texas. So we are, I would say that's like 30 minutes, but we are in Allen, Texas.
Okay. I do like Dallas. I did a week's barbecue crawl there during NADA last year. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably had some good barbecue.
Oh yeah, Terry Black's barbecue has a sweet spot in my heart here. That food was really good. Let me get to a couple of comments. We got Sean Sweden, CDR says, having the 4-year degree is fantastic, but without the hands-on experience and wanting the 4-year wage can be problematic for employers that need a candidate to have in a balanced experience for career opportunities. Yeah, you know what? He makes a good point there. Knowing it is one thing, but having the experience to actually do it, those two things don't always line up. I meet people that are book smart, so to speak, but can't put a bolt in a nut.
Yeah, I would agree. We focus on the bookwork side of it, but then we also focus the majority of our in-person time doing hands-on. assignments or lab work.
Is it a 50-50 or is there a specific percentage of hands-on to book work? And when you say book work, are we talking computer modules and things like that?
Yes. So I guess the term bookwork has really kind of changed. We have hybrid courses. So that means part of the time it's 8 hours a week in person and then 4 hours online. And when they are with us in person, each day it's an hour of doing like lecture. And then the other 3 hours for that specific day are doing hands-on, type of skills. So we try to at least introduce a lot of different skills to them, and then they get to actually practice them.
Now, when you say lecture, are we talking about an instructor educating them about a particular repair, and then there's slides and things like that to go with it, or are we looking at an actual assembly of something that they're looking at?
It can depend on what the class is. So lecture can be all PowerPoint, but I find that students don't really care for that method. And honestly, I feel bad if they had to hear me talk for a whole hour straight, talking at them with, slides. So sometimes we'll do some of that, but a lot of it is more of demonstrations. So I'll say, hey, I'm going to show you how to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to walk you through the steps, and then you're going to go do it. So a lot of our lecture time is more spent doing demonstrations.
Does any of it involve any type of virtual reality or enhanced reality, anything like that? Or we're talking the actual unit of something that they're working on?
We don't use any VR in our program. Reason being is, to me, I think there's other methods of conducting class, but also if I've got a class of 12 students, it's sometimes hard to just dedicate, maybe I can only have 2 on VR at one time. For the sake of me being able to teach as much as I can in the time I have, I prefer to just do everything in person. But I have seen that there's quite a few VR applications. I've seen it in some of the other programs, and I think that they've made the investment doing that. I don't see it quite yet for us. There's like virtual reality, like sprayers and stuff like that, like to spray, but
Yeah.
We haven't really integrated a lot of that in.
I would probably liken that to Flight Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I used to spend hours on Flight Simulator, and I would crash, and I would just hit reset and start again. Take the knots, pull back on the joystick, and I'm flying. The landing part was a little bit difficult, but yeah, there's something to be said from actually doing the work. We get a couple of comments here. Greg Dudley says, I still carry a soft magnet while looking at trades and buying vehicles. Hey, you stick the magnet on and you let go and it falls to the ground. That's probably not the car you want to buy.
Just make sure it's not aluminum, because your magnet won't work on that.
And let's see here. Marshall Sheldon says, labor cost has surpassed the cost of the part. So to repair it, the cost is more than removing and replacing it. To her point, there is less liability. Yeah, I would imagine. And I think that the integrity of the work has to be tenfold better compared to what it was in the past. I mean, I've seen some really questionable body work done. You stand next to the car and it's like you're looking at the Atlantic Ocean. It's not exactly the caliber of work one would want to put their name on. Mm-hmm. Jamie Alexander says, sold Bondo by the truckload back in my early days at Napa. Oh yeah, something? If you've ever done body work, I could still smell the Bondo today.
Yeah, and then if you can't smell the Bondo, then you've probably been doing it too long.
Right. So they probably don't sell as much today, I would imagine, from what I'm hearing. Nathan Williams says maybe his parents worried less about their children's income and worry more about what would benefit their children in the long run. They will see the benefit of children developing skills rather than executive tendencies. Well, what's funny about that is that a lot of people in the automotive trades, within a short time after entering the business, if they're very knowledgeable and they're talented, a lot of these kids can earn 6-figure incomes pretty quickly. Whereas I see, I kind of look at a lot of different things, probably more than I have time for, but I see employment opportunities not generally in that range for some of the people that have gone through a traditional 4-year college that's not in automotives, let's say mechanics or body work. And they're leaving schools with massive, massive debt. And that's something that I'm happy to say you don't have in automotive. As a matter of fact, was it you that was telling me you had a student that was able to get a nice scholarship from Tech Force?
Yes, we were really excited about that. I had a student last year, and she was able to go to SEMA, so we were pretty excited about it. And yeah, there's a lot of scholarships just for automotive and collision. It's crazy how many there are and how people don't apply. It's just money out there that can be claimed. And even going to something that's 2 years, like a community college or a trade school, really cuts down on what that student debt looks like. So I usually compare it to what it costs for an associate degree if you're in county. The cost of that was the same cost as me going to a university nearby for 1 semester. So it was the same price of 1 semester versus a whole 2 years. So I always compare that because, yeah, it was insane. I had 6 classes for a semester, and it was $6,000, and it was all online. Like, it wasn't even anything in person.
Wow. Yeah, cost have changed a little bit since before. Nathan Williams says, so true, we all have to enjoy what we do. Well, I don't weld anything and I don't fix anything mechanically, but I sure do love what I do, that's for sure. And Jamie Alexander says, partnerships and internships are important. The real shop world is a lot different than a controlled school environment. Having the balance is crucial.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. So for our 2-year associate degree and our 2-year certificate, we do ask our students to do a cooperative education class. So what that means is we want them to actually be employed somewhere in the industry and get some of that real world experience while they're still in school. So we try to emphasize that because I could totally agree that the pace is definitely different in a school environment as opposed to a real environment. So we try to at least get them in there. And for a lot of them, it's really intimidating to find a place, but we really try to focus on getting them in sooner versus later. That way we can just reinforce what we're teaching.
Now, the students that come into your program, are these all students that have chosen to go into a particular vocation and they're paying for it out of pocket, or are there actual employers that are sending their students through your program, or is it a mix?
For ours, it's all of them are just willing that they woke up and decided they wanted to do collision work. On our automotive side, there are some dealers that are sending their students to us. So we have seen that, especially for Toyota and Honda. Sometimes they'll have somebody that they want to send through our program.
Now, what about at what point do you get into frame repair?
That would be the last semester. So out of the 4 semesters, it's the very last one.
Okay, so the first semester is the basics. The second semester, we're getting into replacing body panels and things like that.
If we do any replacement of body panels in the first year, it's going to be just bolt-on for now, and then welded-on structures are in the second year.
All right, and then you said there was some electrical involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's that later on.
It's in the second semester. We do some mechanical and electrical. So it's stuff like they pull an engine in that class. They do a little bit of brakes, steering and suspension. It's pretty much like the whole automotive program condensed up into one class. And then we also have a current trends and collision class as well. So that one just focuses on current trends. So we teach about EV safety in that class. We teach some ADAS. We just try and focus on kind of what's up and coming in that one.
Now, the cars have certainly gotten a whole lot more sophisticated today with, there's so many safety things in there. Like, for instance, my previous car did not have much of the safety equipment that I have in my new one. Had it had those safety things, then I wouldn't be in the new one because I wouldn't have crashed my car. It seems as though the cars are almost foolproof. They stop you from getting into an accident, whether you're driving along on the highway or if you're crossing the line and there's oncoming car, things like that. The car will stop in its tracks and not allow you to go any further. Now, is some of that related to the auto body work as well, or is that more on the mechanical side?
It can be. It depends on if that car has been in a wreck before. So what we're kind of noticing now is that with a lot of the ADAS sensors and radar, lidar, that kind of stuff, if there is any kind of removal and install of parts, they're requiring calibrations now. So for us, we just show them how to set all that up. But I feel like we do see a little bit more on the collision side, but honestly, I think it's going to probably be more on the mechanic side now as well, because some OEMs are calling for like an ADAS recalibration when they're doing things like suspension work. Like if you're going to get an alignment, they say, okay, well, you do need to go ahead and do a calibration. So it's about 50-50, but I think we're seeing potentially more issues with ADAS on the collision side because only a percentage of shops are charging for it. And then who's to say they're even doing it correctly? So there's probably a pretty large percentage of a lot of that not being done 100% correctly. So we probably do see some issues with it.
Marshall says, we typically base our pay scales on experience as an industry. I've seen tiny pay bumps for apprentices with an associate's degree. And for those that may not know what ADAS is, can you explain what ADAS is?
So it's the Advanced Driver Assistance System. So if you've got a somewhat newer car, probably within the last 5 years, you have some kind of ADAS capabilities. The most common one is going to be your backup camera, where you can, if you're going in reverse, you can see that. And then there's more advanced features now. That's the lane keep assist, where you're staying in your lane. There's even some crazy ones. There's pedestrian detection now and automatic braking. There's just a lot of different stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, one time I thought in my new car, I thought that I got hit from behind while I was trying to make a turn into a parking lot. But what it was the car actually locked the brakes up because I was inching over the line, kind of hoping somebody would give me an opportunity to pull in, which they generally don't. So you kind of have to clench your teeth, floor it, and make it across the way without somebody hitting you. But I remember the car made this god-awful sound, and I thought I got hit from behind, but then I realized that it was the car that had stopped me. So these sensors are things is that part of regular maintenance, or only if there's a collision? When does some of that stuff get calibrated?
It's a lot more so probably on the collision side. If, for example, a windshield is removed and installed, they usually call for a calibration of the camera that's usually close to your rear view mirror. And things like bumpers, the repairs are really limited now because of the sensors behind the bumpers. So before you could do a lot of repair on them, and now it's you're just replacing if the damage is bad enough, because they limit the amount of thickness on the material of the bumper. So it kind of inhibits the sensors from working correctly if there's just too much material there.
So in my car, for instance, they call it eyesight. It's these two things that hang down from the roof that are on either side of the automatic rear view mirror.
It's a Subaru?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I love the car. It's perfect old man's car. There's nothing sexy about it, but it's got great all-wheel drive. If I need to go somewhere, I never have to worry that I'm not going to get there. So Jamie says ADAS can be such a huge liability, and I've seen a trend in the aftermarket where they are subletting those calibrations out. Well, that's got to also add to the cost of the repair dramatically, all this technology, because I would imagine that something gets bumped, they probably just replace it as opposed to monkey around with it.
Yeah, it does increase the cost. And, shops have to be really diligent about double checking, what's going to trigger that calibration. Like I said, just removing and installing a bumper, you maybe not even touching those sensors, could require a calibration. So, yeah, it is adding a lot of cost. And, yeah, a lot of places are subletting that out. If you look at the amount of space you need to do a calibration, it's fairly large. Sometimes 20 by 30 feet, sometimes more, depending on the vehicle. And a lot of shops don't necessarily have all that space because you can't have any metal within that area. Within it.
Okay.
And there's more specifics. The ground has to be level. There's so many things. So a lot of people are subletting it out because, one, they may not have the space for it, so maybe they send it off. But two, I think a lot of, at least more smaller shops, are a little intimidated by what the process looks like. This is still a relatively new type of process that we're doing. So yeah, we do see a lot of it being subletted out.
So did I hear correctly? Is most of this within the last 5 years or so?
I would say, yeah, between 5 and 10 years. I'm seeing more of it now, and there's a lot more conversation on it. Same with EV. Like, those are our two kind of hot topics that we're really keeping an eye on.
Yeah, the liability's got to be huge. I just can't imagine if something isn't calibrated properly and the safety equipment doesn't deploy. We're a very litigious society today. You get some lawyer involved. Next thing you know, we're looking at class action suit because one person had an improper repair done somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, tell me about EVs. So the EV body work has got to be somewhat different also then, because there's higher, there's lots more wiring. That's high voltage stuff.
Yes. So what we focus on is the safety side. How do we actually disable the vehicle? Also, what indicators show that it's an EV? And then, other things like just the safety side. These are the lineman gloves that you use. How do you test those? We even have a shepherd's hook, which students get a kick out of because it's just this big hook and they want to play little Bo Peep and pull each other, which is silly. But so we focus on that a lot.
Hold on. What do they do?
They'll like pull each other because it's just a big hook. So, if you were getting, electrocuted or something, that's that hook that you pull someone away from instead of grabbing them. Because if you grab them, then now you're part of it too. But so we emphasize safety a lot. When we look at the repair process, we partner with Rivian. So we've got access to a lot of EV material, which we're really grateful for. The partnership there has been awesome. But we do kind of tailor some of our curriculum towards some of that. So one of the big ones for EV repair is doing a lot of glue pulling, as opposed to doing like weld-on attachments and making pulls that way. So because of all the high voltage, they're wanting us to do something more along that line. So it's also less invasive as opposed to old school, grinding, paint down, making these weld-on attachments and making pulls. It's less invasive to just use glue. So that's something that we've kind of started integrating in.
It's funny. Sign at times, you have the hook that they play around with in school. I remember when Mr. Barnett, that was my shop teacher, when he would leave the room, we would shoot each other with the fire extinguishers. Little different time, right? Yeah,
definitely. I don't have any students doing that. Maybe they'll try and kind of like blow each other with the air guns, but I'm like, stop it. Sometimes I just give them a look and they know that they're not supposed to do it. But yeah, it's definitely changing times for sure.
Let's see. Marshall Sheldon, as an instructor, how do you feel your skills have kept up? It sounded like you have been off the floor professionally for a while. What I find with the instructors I work with regularly, they have a hard time with keeping up their knowledge with current equipment. Fair question.
That's a good question. We always kind of talk about that because we are out of the shop. And honestly, my body probably thanks me for that because it's so much work on the body. But for us, we're an ASE accredited program. So they require us to maintain at least 20 hours of professional development. And a lot of times we do far more than that. So for example, Marcus, when he was doing all the Toyota stuff, he was gone for about probably close to 2 weeks worth of time just doing the hands-on training for it. And so he was gone a lot. And then I do a lot as well. We usually do some kind of professional development through, we call them COE funds. So it's the Council on Excellence. So, and that's a call-in thing where they're actually paying for us to go to conferences and stuff like that. So a lot of instructors or other professors and other disciplines will, pick something relative to pedagogy or their specific disciplines like English or, anything in the sciences. But for us, we'll go and go to other things. So I usually like to go to SEMA every year to see what the new equipment is, kind of stay up to date in that regard. But we also have our advisory committee, which is all just people currently in the field. And we really lean on them to kind of see what's on the up and up. So we usually ask, hey, like, what are you seeing in the industry? Is there certain equipment that you like? But we try to stay really tied in with it just because we want to stay on the forefront of that. But yeah, it can be challenging for some schools if you don't have some of that support.
You know, I go to NADA every year. I've been going for years, and on my list is going to SEMA, but for some reason, just schedules never permit. My buddy Mike goes all the time, and he's always asking me, he says, hey, are you coming out this year? Are you coming out this year? So I think I probably need to move that further up my list of events to attend. Because it sounds like there's some really good information that you learn at a place like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, on the EV side of things, is there a lot more to know, or is it more primarily safety in handling? Is it the same work, but more safety, knowledge to not get electrocuted, if you will?
More safety, more knowledge, and also some potentially different equipment for it. So I always think of when you're removing a battery, that's a whole process. We don't necessarily teach that on our side. I know our automotive side does kind of focus in a little bit more on that. I think they may have a full EV course at this point. So the repairs are generally going to be the same, but it's a lot of, how are we disabling these? How are we double checking them? If a car is in a wreck, what damage do we see? How do we process that? We don't just jump in the car and start driving it, especially, or we don't push them either. So if you have regenerative braking, you typically don't want to push those vehicles. So we emphasize more of the safety first on that, just because it's such a big deal. And we will focus on some of the repairs on it, but for us, and the way I see it is that if I do have a student that goes out into the industry, he's probably going to be more concerned with that safety aspect as opposed to, okay, you're going to do this major repair. So I do have one student, a former student that just graduated, and he's working at a Tesla certified body shop. So he's pretty familiar with a lot of that. But I mean, a lot of the body work's generally the same. It's just that safety piece and making sure that, you're not putting yourself or others in danger.
Now, that brings me to the next point, Cybertruck. That's got to be a whole other animal altogether when it comes to body repair, right?
Yeah, I couldn't talk on that one very much, but it's really interesting to hear about them and see what people are doing with them. So I'd be curious to see what repairs on that look like. But I mean, even Tesla repairs are a little bit different. So yeah, I'm sure it's all money. For them, I believe that they don't actually make any structural pulls. A lot of it's just like you're cutting off a part of the vehicle and you're putting a new part on. So because a lot of it's aluminum, so they don't really do that type of repair as you would with a steel structure.
Yeah, I would imagine it's got to be a complete replacement, because it's not like you're doing any kind of body work, paint and feather or any of that. It's the metal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just, I really don't know because I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I would assume it's just all one big panel. I feel like I saw somebody take theirs apart and it was just big panels. So I don't know. I'd have to look into that one some more to make comments on it.
Yeah, I don't know. Me personally, I'm not seeing the appeal, but that's me. Nathan Williams. So in other words, Elon Musk should start to bear all of this in mind.
Yeah,
that's a whole another comment.
Yeah, he's definitely changing the game in a lot of ways. So I guess we'll see what happens. He's kind of just shaking the tree on a lot of stuff with processes, and it's just interesting. It's fun to watch. I think we're in a really exciting time of fixing cars right now because of all the different technology and all the changes that we're seeing. So we have to really try and stay ahead of it, but it's fun to just kind of sit back and watch. And I'm also like, well, thank goodness, I'm not out there working on these cars anymore,
right.
So that's kind of fun.
And I think the electronics in the Cybertruck are different than most other EVs altogether, also from some stuff I had read. Marshall Sheldon, I interact with the students and instructors through the advisory boards. While I am invested in a couple of schools already, do you have any advice for others that want to get involved and where to start?
So yeah, if you are interested in being an advisory committee, I would look and see which programs are close to you. Tech Forest has all that information, location wise, where they're at. And then usually I believe they've got some contacts on there so you can reach out to the schools directly. And so that's where to start. Ways to get involved. I mean, there's a million ways you can offer tours of your shop or, whatever business you're in. You can come visit and talk to students. I personally enjoy that because one, I take a break from teaching for a day, but two, they like to hear sometimes from other people as opposed to us. So it keeps it fresh and exciting. Their attention's held a little bit longer. So that's really nice. And then on the other side of it, for support for a lot of schools, especially on the collision side, they need help getting parts, vehicles, materials. A lot of the budgets are fairly limited. And the cost to teach these things costs a lot sometimes. We talk about that gallon of body filler, that still costs money, and you just use it, you sand it away, and it's an expense for sure. So those are some ways to really help out. If you've got an I-CAR committee in your area, so I-CAR is the Inter-Industry Conference on Auto Collision Repair. And if you look at the acronym, it actually doesn't spell I-CAR, which I always think is kind of funny. But they have these volunteer committees in a lot of the major cities, and they also work directly with a lot of schools. So that's another outlet that you can go through. But it does require a little bit of legwork on finding out who those contacts are. But usually a Google search will pull up a lot of that for you.
And don't forget to use techforce.org as a good source for a lot of this stuff. It's free to join. It is a nonprofit that is scheduled to give out $4 million in scholarships this year to automotive, fleet, and aviation technicians that want to get into the business. And they cover so much, because if you have somebody that has an aptitude for mechanics, okay, you can join this as an individual. You create a free account. And there's so many great videos on there where somebody that has a desire to want to learn some of these mechanical repairs, they can watch 2-3 minute videos on how alignments work, on how to replace a window regulator, how to replace brakes, all these different types of videos. They're not certification material, but they teach you the bona fide how to do it. Okay, I've replaced, I've fixed the navigation system on one of my Lexus cars simply by watching a YouTube video on how to take the unit apart out of the car. I taught myself how to fix computers, so in my head, I kind of had an idea that based on the error reading that I saw on the screen, that it was probably the DVD drive that was faulty. I watched a video on how to take it apart out of the dashboard. I found this place in Cincinnati for $279 plus shipping. They rebuilt the DVD drive, the DVD player. And when I got it back, I popped that sucker in the dashboard. I put the disc in there. I see the thing that says loading. I'm like, yes. Because when I initially inquired, Lexus wanted $3,000, $3,000 for that. And I kept digging and I found a used one for $2,000. I'm like, I'm not spending that. No way. And then I found the place in Cincinnati that rebuilds them. So all from a YouTube video. And on techforce.org, there is a whole collection of different videos where people that want to learn how to fix all these different things on cars, they can watch these videos and understand it in here. And when you couple that with doing the hands-on stuff, it's a tremendous resource. And that $4 million that they're giving out to help students doesn't just come off of a money tree somewhere. All right. If you're an organization, a dealer group, a dealership, or a repair or body shop, you can be a part of that in helping bring more people into our business. You know, you join. I mean, we're always pounding our chest that we contribute to our communities, and And that's all well and good, but that's usually in the form of a baseball jersey or something like that, or our name, XYZ automobile dealership is on the side of the field. I'm thinking you can help in better ways, right? You can become a sponsor, a donating sponsor to techforce.org, and you can help grow that technician base. And when you're part of the sponsorships, you also have a different level of access to I think programs and people. So I think that's a win-win. I think that's a better way for us to communicate that we care about our communities and we truly want to help for help's sake, not just, for us. A lot of what we do is, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but what are you going to do for me, right? This is a whole different thing. This is you help people get educated in our business and you grow the number of people that we need so we can better service our clients. Nathan Williams says, this reminds me of the show a few weeks ago on Skills USA. Yes, yep. That was a few weeks ago. I was in Cleveland. Where was I? I think I might have been in Cleveland. I don't remember. I travel so much, I lose track of where I go. People ask, where are you going? So hold on, let me look at my travel app. Oh yeah, this is where I'm going. I look at my flights and I look at my hotels. That's how I know where and when I'll be wherever it is that I'm going to go. So student support, student success. You help kids in navigating the looking for work, things like that.
Yeah, we do. So we actually have dedicated career coaches in a lot of our programs. And shout out to Sean, who I don't know if he's still on here or not. Sean Sweden is also one of those, but he does it for a couple of different programs. But we do have people that focus on finding those contacts, getting students in where they want to be. For us, for Marcus and I, we really focus on what is it that the student wants to do. Where do they live? Because that's a big one. 10 miles may seem only like 10 miles, but if it's in like downtown Dallas, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there. So we look geographically on that and then try and link up students with what they want to do and where they want to be.
Do you get a lot of students travel from out of state, or is it more regional?
More regional. We haven't had any out of state. On our automotive program, I did hear that there was one coming from Oklahoma or close to Oklahoma, which is probably about an hour away. So we are seeing a little bit of that, but most of ours are in Collin County, which is, primarily who we serve and we as an institution serve. And then we do see some from the counties around us.
Any personal advice you would give somebody thinking about getting into this business?
I guess from a college standpoint, it wouldn't hurt to get a little bit of education, some kind of a background on it. So that way, when you get in there, it's not as intimidating. That's definitely a good step. Also, just finding the network in there and figuring out who's where is really beneficial. And for the women who want to join programs or join in the industry, it can be really intimidating for them just because it still is a bit of a male-dominated field. I would definitely say find some people or some women in the industry and kind of link up with them and, kind of find those mentors for you to kind of help you get through it, because chances are we've all kind of been through some of the same stuff. So that's definitely something I would recommend. And if it's something that you're really passionate about, stick with it. Not everybody's successful right off the bat. So being able to be resilient in that regard and just really try and strive and continue to learn, I think that really helps you be successful.
I think overall in automotive, women technicians is a very, very small percentage. I would imagine in body and collision, it's got to be even smaller than that.
It can be. Something that I was really excited about was that I believe it was like every 1 in 5 of my students, so close to 20% were females. So it's definitely a larger percentage as opposed to
what percent?
Like it's about 20%. It was this last semester, it was like every 1 in 5 were women.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, we were really excited about it. It makes the classroom a lot more interesting just because the women work really hard, and then it's almost like some of the male students are trying to keep up, and the dynamic is just different. But all the women that I've had in my program are very strong minded and just really strong willed. So it's been really cool to see them, and kind of forge that path. So I just thought it was a really cool statistic that we had for our program.
That's huge. That's 10 times more than I've seen in automotive.
Yeah.
I hear numbers like 2% being thrown out there. So that's huge. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, John is still here. He says career development, apprenticeships, military skill bridge, etc.
Yeah, Sean does a lot. Honestly, he'd probably run out of space typing everything he does. But he and the other career coaches are like instrumental to our program success because they work so much with the students one-on-one. And I know Sean probably has more students than we do in our building. But those folks, they really care about the students like we do. And they also help them, sometimes look at resumes, find jobs, all kinds of stuff. And then, for the military side, we are one of the veteran-friendly institutions. So, we've been recognized as that. So Collin has. And so we see kind of veterans. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good. Marshall Sheldon, Elias Alba asks, how would you go about finding the right collision program? Well, I don't see that comment in here.
Marshall must be with Elias right now. Elias is my boss. Finding the right collision program. So from an institutional side, looking at if it can transfer out, if it's a private or a public institution. And either one's fine, but also looking at what the credentials of the faculty are. If, for example, we're an ASE accredited program, so we maintain a different form of standards. So I would say look at all of those things, but also see what's close to you, first, and then kind of venture out beyond that, just because the expenses sometimes can be a little bit high if you are out of state or out of county.
Let me tell you a little bit about Marshall Sheldon here. This guy is the poster person for engaged in automotive. Okay. This guy, he lives the Kaizen principle. He's always, I'm so proud. Every time I see another announcement on LinkedIn, he's achieved yet another level of proficiency in his craft. It seems as though he goes for every single opportunity to learn and get certifications for that. And he's involved in all these different programs where, he's going into schools and things like that. And very few people like that. So I'm very proud to say that I'm connected with Marshall because he exemplifies what we want other people to do in our business. Mm-hmm. And more people, we need more Marshall Sheldons, because if we had more Marshall Sheldons, we wouldn't have some of the problems that we have today. And he said, and he even knows your boss. What did he ask? Oh my God.
Well, Elias knows people.
He says, I got you, fam. I got different comments on the computer than on my phone app. Yeah, you know what? There's a glitch on LinkedIn where it doesn't always show me all the comments until after the show has ended. Then I'll see that there were people that have made comments during the live, but for some reason, and it's one of those problems. I don't know if it'll ever be solved. I've contacted StreamYard. I've contacted LinkedIn, and this is what I get.
Of course.
See, I'm in the middle, right? I can't fix it. And for some reason, they won't fix it. So I do address them afterwards. Greg Dudley says Kaizen. That is probably my favorite word. Mm-hmm. And I strive to live a Kaizen lifestyle, but I don't hold a candle to Marshall Sheldon when it comes to that. That guy really, really does that. So thank you, Marshall, for all you do, brother. And Nathan Williams says, well, I found that posting your glitch on LinkedIn gets results. You know what? I've contacted them, but I haven't actually posted it. I think I'm going to take your advice on that, Nathan, and see if that does any good. Well, the hour has come and gone, as every week it does. It seems like, initially I think an hour is a long time, but then an hour just goes by so fast. It's the quickest 60 minutes, or in this case, 61 minutes that we've ever had. So Raven, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing what you do. I want to thank TechForce for all they do. There are 4 million reasons for people to want to get involved with TechForce. It's techforce.org. Let me see here. I'm going to play their video on the way out here. Where is the video? There we go. So thank you for being on. To those that watch it live, thank you for your support. And those that watch it on the replay, thank you. So watch this short video and have a safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.
You know the difference between a camshaft and a crankshaft. You know that the McPherson strut is not a dance move. You get it. Others don't. There is finally a place for you, with millions of dollars in scholarships for you. VIP tickets to events like SEMA, Formula Drift, and Mecum auctions for you. Training, contests, and prizes for you. Apprenticeships and jobs for you. TechForce was built for techs like you. Here's what our friend Vaughn Gittin Jr. has to say about TechForce.
What's up, everyone? I'm world champion drifter and professional fun haver, Vaughn Gittin Jr. I'm reaching out to you today to let you guys know about TechForce, a new peer-to-peer effective network designed to give aspiring present and future technicians a place to show their stuff. Pretty cool, right? So make sure you head to techforce.org. Have fun. Wow!
Thanks, Vaughn. So check TechForce out, everyone. www.techforce.org or scan this QR code. Seriously? Have you scanned the QR code yet? It's right there. Come on. VIP events, scholarships, just check it out. Personalize it. Do it your way.